In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a larger than matte vinyl wall decal using your Cricut. First, you want to measure your wall and find a PNG or SVG on Google of the image or logo that you want to use and upload it to Design Space. After, you will resize to your desired wall measurements. I want mine to be about 30 inches width. Next, we will add a pointed square, not a rounded one, using the shape feature, and we're going to adjust and change the color. This will make sense a little later on. Now we will resize the square to the size of our cutting mat, which Cricut is restricted to cut 11.5 inches by 11.5 inches for a 12-inch mat. Now on the layers panel, we will move the virtual cutting mat layer, aka the square, under the logo or the image layer so that we can see what we're working with on top. Now this next part is optional, but I'm going to slice a straight edge off the top of my logo so that I have a good starting point when placing it on my wall. And to do this, I'm going to cross select by holding down the mouse and dragging over the layers I want selected. Then at the bottom of the layers panel, hit slice and delete off the pieces I want gone. Because Cricut can't cut this large of an image, we now need to break this image down into sizable pieces using our virtual cutting mat method, which is an 11.5 inch square, changing the color and moving the layer like we just did. Next, we're going to line up parts of the image edge to edge on our virtual cutting mat so that we can optimize the space on the square while cutting straight lines, because later on we're going to want to piece it all together like a puzzle on the wall. And having easy to follow straight lines is what's going to help us do that. Then just cross select both layers and slice at the bottom of the layers panel. Then delete off the black slice and the square slice and leave the colored slice of the image. As you can see how this is going to be one big puzzle as the edges line up. We're going to repeat this process until the entire image is broken apart into those 11.5 pieces to fit on our real cutting mat when we're ready. Each piece should be a different color because we will eventually be using it as our guide for when we're putting it on our wall. And while you're breaking it apart, I try to zoom in and line the piece up from the previous cut to the edge of the virtual mat so that you can optimize the most of your vinyl being cut. Now, if there's a piece that will slice in a weird place, don't be afraid to rotate the mat to get an even piece because, like I said, this will help with lining it up on the wall. So we want a nice, clean, straight edge. And some pieces might take some moving around or zooming in to figure out how exactly to optimize that shape the best way while slicing whole pieces. You want to make sure that we're slicing whole pieces with straight lines. I can't stress that enough. You don't want any shapes with a ton of lines or jaggedy edges. Depending on how big you want your image on your wall will depend on how many pieces that you're ultimately going to have in the end. If it's bigger, you're going to have more pieces. If it's smaller, you'll probably have less pieces. And once you're done, everything should look similar to this, like one big color-coded puzzle. Before our next step, you'll want to cross-select to duplicate your design, and in the layers panel, hide your duplicate layer. We want a untouched color-coded guide to refer to when we're piecing this all together. We're going to create a virtual mat once more to group smaller pieces to cut on the same mat to help us save vinyl. Most pieces will need to be on their own mat, but smaller pieces can be cut together. And to do that, we will need to cross-select the pieces that need to be grouped. And at the bottom of the layers panel, hit attach to keep them as one cut. After the grouped pieces are cut, you can just break them apart with scissors. Once you hit make it, you'll be prompted to the preview screen, and this is an idea of what your mats will look like. And then you're just going to cut. I'm using Oracle 361 removable vinyl. Depending on your design, you might need contact paper, but I just folded back the edge of the backing since I had a simple design and used the ceiling and the crease of the wall to get started, which is why I cut the top off of the logo to give me a straight edge to begin with. And then I had to call in some backup. Shout out to my husband Matt to help, but we used a spackle scraper to smooth out any of the air bubbles. And if you still are having trouble with air bubbles, just run a hairdryer over the design. Before we started to place the pieces on the wall, I did sequence each piece and note the color that they were on the guide and design space on the backing of the vinyl. So we just begin to piece it together, lining up the edges and using the color-coded guide we created in Design Space to put it all together. This is why having simple, straight pieces is so important. Some of the pieces may need 2 people to help get it started so that it's lined up correctly. And again, I'm showing that I numbered and color-coded each piece on the backing of the vinyl, which is super helpful to know which piece will build off the next. And there you have it, a giant wall decal using your Cricut. If this video was helpful, please be sure to share with a friend. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.